The night was unusually quiet in the grand mansion of Alexander Cole, a self-made millionaire known for his cold composure and strict routines. His marble halls gleamed with spotless perfection, and every corner smelled faintly of lavender polish. To outsiders, his life looked flawless: wealth, prestige, and a mansion that could swallow 10 families whole. But behind the walls, a secret tension simmered, one that would soon erupt in the most unexpected way. Alexander had hired Maria, a young maid with a humble heart, only 6 months ago. She had come from a small village, desperate to support her newborn twins after her husband's sudden death in an accident. Despite her hardships, she worked quietly and honestly, never complaining, even when exhaustion showed in her eyes. But there was someone in the mansion who didn't like Maria: Victoria, the longtime housekeeper. For years, she'd been the queen of the household, managing every servant and keeping close to Mr. Cole. But when Maria arrived, everything began to change. Alexander noticed Maria's care with the children, her attention to detail, her quiet smile. And that subtle shift made Victoria's heart boil with jealousy. One rainy evening, Victoria stood in the dimly lit hallway, her eyes fixed on the nursery monitor. Through the small screen, she could see Maria sitting on the floor, feeding her twins softly while humming a lullaby. Victoria's lips twisted. "Pathetic," she muttered. "Using those babies to win sympathy." She turned sharply and stormed off toward Alexander's office. "Sir," she said, knocking on the door gently. "I think you should know something about that new maid." Alexander didn't look up from his laptop. "What is it now, Victoria?" "She's been bringing her children into the guest rooms again. I warned her, but she won't listen. I suspect she's taking advantage of your kindness." Alexander sighed. "Maria is doing her job well. She has nowhere else to keep her babies safe while she works. Let's not make this harder for her." Victoria clenched her jaw. "Of course, sir," she said softly, but inside, her anger was growing roots. That night, when the mansion lights dimmed and everyone retreated to their rooms, Victoria made her move. She tiptoed down the hallway, her shadow long and twisted against the marble walls. In her hand, she held a key, one that opened every door in the house. She stopped in front of the bathroom at the end of the servants' corridor. Inside, Maria was washing small clothes, her twins asleep nearby in a baby carrier strapped to her back. She was tired, too tired to notice the faint click of the lock from the outside. Victoria smiled coldly. "Let's see how you manage now," she whispered before walking away. When Maria finished and tried to open the door, it didn't budge. "Huh?" she whispered, pulling again. Nothing. She tried harder, panic rising in her chest. "No. No, please." She knocked. Then louder. "Is anyone there? Hello?" The door stuck. But it was midnight. Everyone was asleep, or so she thought. The twins began to stir, their tiny cries echoing off the tiled walls. Maria held them close, whispering softly, "It's okay, my loves. Mommy's here. We'll be fine. Someone will hear us." Hours passed. The air grew cold. The babies cried until they fell asleep again in her arms. Maria sat on the floor, trembling, whispering prayers into the darkness. Morning came. Alexander awoke early, as usual, sipping his coffee in the kitchen. But something felt off. The house was too quiet. Normally, by this time, he'd hear the soft clinking of dishes or Maria's faint humming from the hall. But today, silence. He frowned. "Where's Maria?" Victoria appeared, feigning innocence. "I think she left early, sir." "Perhaps she didn't want to disturb anyone." "Left early?" Alexander's voice hardened. "Without notice?" Victoria shrugged. "You know how these poor women are. Always some drama." But Alexander wasn't convinced. He stood abruptly, walking toward the lower corridor. As he reached the servants' quarters, he heard something faint, like a soft whimper. He paused. "Did you hear that?" Victoria froze. "Hear what?" Alexander moved toward the bathroom. The sound grew clearer now, muffled sobs. He grabbed the doorknob and twisted it. "Locked? Why is this locked?" he demanded. I don't know," Victoria stammered. "Maybe she locked it from inside." But Alexander wasn't buying it. He fetched a spare key from the hallway cabinet and unlocked the door. The moment it opened, his world shifted. Maria sat slumped against the wall, her uniform soaked with tears, her twins clinging to her chest. Their faces were pale, but their eyes fluttered open at the light. "Sir," Maria whispered weakly. I don't know what happened. The door, it wouldn't open. The babies, they were crying all night." Alexander's heart clenched. He rushed forward, kneeling beside her. "My God, Maria, why didn't you call for help?" "I tried, but no one heard me," she said, trembling. "Please, sir, I didn't mean to cause trouble." He looked around, the cold bathroom, the faint condensation on the locked door, the empty bowl of water she'd been using to keep the babies cool through the night. And then he noticed something else, faint scratch marks near the keyhole. From the outside, his eyes narrowed. He turned slowly to Victoria, who stood frozen in the doorway. "Who locked this door?" I have no idea, sir," she said quickly, her voice trembling. "Maybe it jammed. You know these old locks," but Alexander had already made up his mind. "This house is barely 5 years old. Those locks don't jam." Maria tried to speak, but he raised a hand gently. "Rest. You've been through enough." He helped her to her feet and carried one of the twins himself, leading her to the living room sofa. Then he turned back to Victoria. "Stay here. Don't move." When he came back minutes later, he was holding the security tablet that recorded every camera feed in the house. He tapped quickly through the footage. At exactly 11:46 p.m., a figure could be seen walking down the hallway. Victoria, the video showed her pausing at the bathroom door, then bending down for several seconds before walking away. The silence that followed was deafening. Alexander's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. "Victoria, explain this." She started to cry. I only wanted to teach her a lesson. She keeps breaking the rules, bringing those babies everywhere. You locked a mother and her children in a bathroom all night," he thundered. "You could have killed them." Victoria's tears turned to panic. "I didn't mean, enough." The sound of his voice made the babies stir again. Maria held them tighter, her lips trembling. Alexander turned away, furious, disgusted, ashamed that he had ever trusted the woman standing before him. "Pack your things," he said coldly. "You're done here." Victoria fell to her knees. "Please, sir," I said now. He didn't wait to watch her leave. He turned back to Maria, lowering his tone. "You should have told me if anyone mistreated you." Maria shook her head. "I didn't want to lose this job, sir. I need to feed my babies." Alexander looked at her, truly looked at her, and for the first time in years, something softened inside him. The walls he had built since his wife's death began to crack. "You're not losing your job," he said quietly. "You're gaining a home." Tears welled in Maria's eyes. "Sir." He smiled faintly. "Rest now. You and your children are safe here. I promise you that." As the morning light poured through the tall windows, Alexander watched her cradle her twins and close her eyes in relief. But inside his mind, questions burned. How far had Victoria gone before? Had this been the first time, or just the first time she got caught? He didn't know it yet, but the truth behind Victoria's actions ran much deeper, a hidden secret that would soon turn his entire world upside down.